Hello everyone, it's your host, SethTheProgrammer. With me today, I have my good old friend, Six. And, by the way, did you know if you haven't subscribed to him, you actually should? He actually makes some great Naruto content. Some of the best I've ever seen. Maybe not as good as mine, but, it's pretty decent. So if you haven't already, and you want to see more consistent Naruto, Boruto stuff, I would head over to his channel. I don't always upload Naruto, Boruto stuff, even though I upload a lot, but he always does, so you can look forward to that. Other than that, though, today's video will be on Naruto vs Boruto. So this is actually a topic that has been requested for a long time. The last time I talked about it was, what, in 2017? And yeah, I think Swag Kage and I were just like, well, Naruto would summon Giant Frog and it would stomp on him or something. So that might not be the case anymore. As we know, Boruto has changed a lot since we made that video. Basically, back then, all we had was, what was it, the first arc or two, and that was about it. But now, especially in the anime, Boruto has done some crazy things that definitely make this more even debate that's more believable. And I think even the Naruto fans may agree that, yeah, maybe Boruto is somewhat overpowered now. So hopefully we can actually have a conversation about it. And without further ado, why don't you just start us off?
So with Momoshiki, right, this differs between both anime and manga. I mean, they're separate continuities. The author sort of describes it like what's going on with Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, but they're both still canon.
Yeah, they're both still canon. Yeah, they just go separate routes, if you will. So in the manga, Momoshiki is weakened in his encounter with Boruto. We all know that. Boruto's obviously not like beating up Kaguya level and above threats like in base form, right? So in the anime, we see Momoshiki eat these chakra pills that he gets from B. And he actually takes the maximum amount of chakra that he can from B, at least without killing him, right? So he takes 5, and he says that these pills are just pure power, right? Like that's sort of the whole idea with Momoshiki versus Naruto. Momoshiki's a cheater. He likes to get his power through pills and things like that. Naruto's sort of like the hardworking guy. He doesn't believe what Momoshiki's doing is true power.
I talk about that whole narrative thing, by the way, in more detail in Boruto The Honest Truth, if you guys are interested. So
yeah, really good video, really good video. But yeah, so that's the whole idea with that. And then Momoshiki, he eats these pills, and then Boruto's actually able to like combat and react to this Momoshiki. So you could say Boruto in like the first arc of the show is like an above 8 tails level threat.
In the anime, this is somewhat diluted because obviously in the anime he has more of his Jogan Super Otsutsuki Eye ability, which kind of makes things a little bit more confusing. But in the manga, he actually just doesn't use that. So
yeah, just
it's a little bit more confusing. Now, one thing I will say about these chakra pills that Momoshiki eats is that it's very confusing. So, for one, we have Momoshiki. He gets shot by an 8-Tails Bijou Bomb. And he's like, you know what? Why don't I just direct it with twice the force back at you? This is in the anime from what I remember. But why don't I just direct it back at you twice the force? And then blast the 8-Tails on some, like, Mewtwo from the first Pokemon movie. He's using, like, Reflect and just bounces it back at him and basically kills him. And then Momoshiki absorbs his energy, and he's like, is that it? Only 5 pills? I guess he was trash. And then gets the pill, puts the pills in his space pocket or wherever he put them. We don't know. But it's weird because he felt the 8-Tails blast him with this Bijou Bomb. He directs it back, and he's like, that's all he gave me. And then from what we learn is that the 8-Tails and Killer Bee may have given Momoshiki the slip entirely, which is why he only got 5 pills out of it. Something that also somewhat backs this up is that one-tailed Naruto in the anime, at least in the time travel arc, Borushiki is trying to extract the 9 tails from him, and he throws a fishing rod into his aura, and it basically just bounces off. But even that, it's enough to get 1 pill out of him. So are you telling me that little fart of chakra he ripped off from one-tailed Kid Naruto is 1/5 of Killer Bee and the 8-Tails put together in Boruto? Probably a bit unlikely, but if you do say he's above 8-Tails level when Boruto is giving him the hands, then I mean, we don't need to discuss any further. You know, Naruto just gets absolutely curb stomped. But that's an alternative interpretation. However, the anime actually gets even crazier with the scaling entirely, in which in the anime there is a arc where the Tsuchikage is basically having to fight against a group called Ku, where Inoki made these Otsutsuki slaying super clones of himself.
Literally clones to fight Kaguya level threats.
Yes.
He made these clones for.
Yeah.
So Kuretsuchi runs into one of them, right? Or not one of them. He runs into the main one, the big guy, Ku. Yeah. They're in the village, and she uses like nin taijutsu rock fist to try to combat him, and he's just clapping her.
He blocks it without.
Death.
Dude, he blocks it without flinching.
Yeah, like
how
the
absurd
sword.
is that?
The sword doesn't even move. Like the shit she hit Kinshiki with, where she like punched him and he like flew through the god tree and like bounced around till Sasuke hit him. He just no sells it. He doesn't even flinch.
And what's crazy about this, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, well, Kinshiki was off guard. He's getting jumped. But dude, Kinshiki watched her pull up in front of him. There's a few seconds while she winds up a punch, and then he gets hit, and then he gets launched away. And then while he gets hit by Chojiro's like needle technique, I forgot the exact name. He gets hit by Chojiro's technique, and then he's like, ah, that hurts. But you know, he doesn't scream in pain until Kuretsuchi starts hitting him with her sublime lime jutsu, like the ceiling jutsu. Then he starts groaning in pain from her jutsu and wrapping around him. By the way, Chojiro is complete garbage in this anime, but we'll get into that in a minute. But basically, Kuretsuchi's lime jutsu or whatever is able to suppress him and make him groan in pain. Yet here's that same girl throwing probably a stronger attack at Ku, and you know, not only is it probably a stronger attack, but this is post Kinshiki, and it's implied all of the Kage are like on guard, training, trying to be ready for Otsutsuki threats. So if anything, she might be stronger than ever before, using a stronger technique, and Ku just tanks it, and then here's Team 7 bullying him.
Bodying Ku. So
like literally bullying him.
There is like a few counter arguments I've heard where people are like, oh, well, maybe Kuretsuchi's not trying on Ku because they're like in the middle of the village or whatever. I find this somewhat unlikely considering the people she's talking to. They literally are a threat to the village, and she uses a stronger method of force than what she used on an Otsutsuki outside of the
right,
village,
exactly.
inside. So I don't think that that's a valid counter argument.
Yeah, the other weird one too is obviously you have Chojiro fighting like the 7 new swordsmen or whatever, and they're able to actually damage him with threads or something while he doesn't have his sword. Sure, he's at 50% power, but then you have pretty much a really garbage tier Team 7 and Sarada kind of fighting these 7 swordsmen, kind of showing that they're actually encroaching on Kage level.
Which
something
is
else
insane.
Something else that sort of supports this, even in the Ku arc, is that from what I remember, a lot of Jonin are actually sent to the Sand Village to come and help it, and these Jonin are taken out by Ku's underlings. Yet Boruto and gang are able to handle it, implying that Boruto and gang are above the Jonin who went. Now, you can say this is, you know, inconsistent or whatever, but I'm going to be real with you. I just think it's the writers of these fillers don't know what they're...
They don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're on about. But that regardless, it's something, you know, in the anime, it happened. You know what I mean? It's just something that happened. And what gets even worse is we get a literal time travel arc, and that's what makes this video even more relevant than ever before.
It makes it easier, too.
We see Boruto next to Part 1 Kid Naruto, and it's not any Part 1 Kid Naruto, it's Part 1 Naruto, but he's stronger than any iteration of him in the manga because this is post-Sasuke retrieval.
Yeah.
So this is him stronger than we've ever seen him in Part 1.
This Naruto arguably has better chakra control than even like Naruto later in the series, like with Sage Mode, right? So that might sound wild, I know. I'll explain though.
It's another 7 theory.
when Naruto enters this like one-tailed Kyuubi form, he's able to form Rasengan without using two hands. He can actually do it using one hand. But then in the war arc with KCM, Naruto still says to B that he can't form Rasengan using one hand. He still needs shadow clones. So that's just a way to say like this Naruto just has like supreme chakra control. And
it also might be because of Boruto. It might also be because of Boruto helping him out and helping him calm down. And honestly, that whole time travel arc, in my personal opinion, it should have been more of a movie or something, like some kind of canon movie. But it's in the anime. Now, something interesting is that a lot of people seem to think that the time travel arc is not canon. So, you know, take that as you will. I don't know where the evidence for that is from, but if it is, that's great. But if it is canon and it's valid for this discussion, we kind of have a lot to talk about because we get introduced to Borushiki, and Borushiki in basically every thing that talks about him, any extra material that talks about him, it says that he is revered being honored, praised, or respected as the strongest of his clan being the Otsutsuki clan. And it might actually be consistent when you figure out that he might actually have better feats than base Kinshiki and base Momoshiki, because from what we know, you know, base Kinshiki and Momoshiki, they're struggling with the Kage or whatever. They struggle with 2-on-1s. For instance, you know, you have Darui and Gaara. They're kind of giving base Momoshiki a hard time, and Kinshikis just can kind of bully it around. But Borushiki faces against Sasuke, who just came from another dimension. You know, he just transported out with his Rinnegan against Gaara, and it's actually stated verbatim in these extra materials that Sasuke and Gaara cannot defeat Borushiki at all.
Borushiki's fought Gaara twice. Both times Gaara's had a teammate. First time it was Chojuro. Second time it was Sasuke. He's gotten away from Gaara both times. So, I mean, it's a pretty consistent thing for Borushiki to be over Gaara at least.
Yes. And what's even crazier is that it's implied that Boruto and Shinji stand a chance against Borushiki when Gaara and Sasuke didn't. So, you know, it's like, now, for Sasuke, you can say, oh, well, Sasuke's, you know, suppressed or whatever, but Gaara, he's at full power, and he's taken punches from Fusion Momoshiki in both the manga and the anime, and yet Boruto and, you know, his friend are taking down Borushiki, and then in the time skip, or the time travel arc, they go back in time, and Borushiki he gets stronger. He uses his Rinnegan powers. He gets his Tomo Rinnegan, and then he gets a blue Rinnegan on top of that. Now, you might be able to argue that Jiraiya poisoned him at certain points, but even then, you have situations where Borushiki is clearly taking Kirin from Sasuke, okay, or avoiding Amaterasu on Sasuke's sword. Do you think that Part 1 Naruto could ever take on an opponent that could take Kirin? Well, apparently in this time travel arc, he can.
They just obliterate. Like, Kirin hits him, it doesn't kill him. Then double Rasengan hits him, and he's just gone. Like, no karma, nothing. He's out of there, dead.
Yeah.
And then Borushiki even implies, right, when he's trying to evolve, right? That's what Otsutsuki do. They try to evolve through like obtaining chakra and chakra fruits. He even implies that the amount of chakra he took from Sasuke, which was enough to like put Sasuke out of commission for a whole arc, bring him back down to Part 1 level. He implies that that's not enough, and that's why he eats his blue Rinnegan to evolve.
Yeah. So you have Shinki and Boruto, they're stronger than Gaara and nerf Sasuke. Then you have Naruto from Part 1 and Boruto working together to beat Borushiki. Now, something that makes this crazy, though, is that I've heard some people say that in this time travel arc that this Naruto is stronger than normal or something, so it might be some alternate timeline Naruto, which is why he's so strong, which would make Boruto stomp pretty objectively. However, if we do say that they are like somewhat relative, you can say they combined their Rasengans and they use a perfect combination attack, which it was implied they were doing. To use a perfect combination attack, you kind of have to have matching chakra, which is implied with Naruto and Sasuke in the war when they're using the
Rasen Shuriken
like
and Amaterasu thing.
Yeah, Amaterasu, Inferno, Rasen Shuriken, Tempest, Ultra Style, whatever.
Sasuke literally just says he's matching Naruto's chakra levels.
Yeah, whatever Minato named that technique, I don't know. But regardless, so if you imply that, then Boruto matched his chakra level, and then obviously Boruto just gets stronger as time goes on. The other thing, too, is that even while somewhat off guard and not trying to mess with Naruto, and Naruto's in his one-tailed cloak and going kind of feral, Boruto's actually able to react to his slashes. Now, while Naruto's able to cut him, you know, base Boruto is still actually reacting to these slashes, so it implies there's some level of relativity that may justify the Rasengan clashing with Naruto's. Another thing that makes Boruto combining his Rasengan with one-tailed Naruto so convincing as well is that, as we know, Boruto does not just make normal Rasengans, he makes nature-infused Rasengans that are actually stronger than normal, which is why they're able to
passively.
Which is why he's able to kind of knock down Momoshiki with them, and he has abnormally powerful Rasengans, because they're almost like his own weird version of Rasen Shuriken instead, which is, so
he combines the chakra. Naruto does the same thing, except they just don't call it the high compression Rasengan. So Naruto gets like wind release on top of his Rasengan, but then he takes it a step further to make a new jutsu. That's the Rasen Shuriken. Boruto just doesn't take that last step, and he just keeps the high compression Rasengan.
Yeah. So from there, we obviously know in the manga that while getting goaded by Code into doing it, Boruto is able to use basically over 80% of his downloaded Momoshiki data as a karma power-up at will and activate his Byakugan. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you guys. There's just no way that Naruto at all can take this Boruto. If Boruto is at all using this karma, and this karma is at all even like a decent or somewhat percentage of the real Momoshiki, even the base one, it just doesn't make sense for Naruto to stand a chance, unless for some reason you think that the time skip or the time travel arc of Naruto is how strong you'd be, like an actual canon or something. So it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for Naruto to even compete. Even in the original, as we said, you know, Boruto's already kind of reacting to one-tails, let alone this karma mark. Now, something else that also, even without this, you know, say, oh, well, that's just a BS, you know, Karma, Otsutsuki, you know, Gary Stu power-up. Even then, Team 7 does fight Boro. Alright, and Boro, he's no joke. Like,
Kara Inners are supposed to be like these Otsutsuki level powered up beings.
Yes. And one thing about Boro specifically is that there's a guidebook that says, you know, Code thought that he and Boro were greater than Delta, and that they might need to handle Naruto if Delta couldn't. Now, you could just say that this is because Boro has, you know, regeneration and like virus hacks or some weird things. However, it just kind of goes to show that Boro, even at all being relevant in a fight that Delta couldn't handle, is pretty astronomical of a statement. So if someone was just able to beat Delta and Boro was just an ant in comparison and was just infinitesimally weaker and he couldn't even like perceive the fighter who beat Delta, it's pretty weird to say that, yeah, he'll just deal with it when you can't. So Team 7 beating Boro, who's like this Otsutsuki, you know, created strange inner of Kara, it's really just above anything Part 1 Naruto's ever dreamed of, unfortunately. But
yeah, if you want to take it like a step further, Kawaki says that in some ways Boro is even worse than Jigen. So
yeah, and Team 7 deals with them. Now, obviously, you know, Boruto doesn't solo Boro or whatever, but he's still relevant in the fight. And I believe when Boro is rampaging, he actually hits a few of the team members, and they actually survive hits from him.
Yeah, they get knocked out, and they're all out of chakra.
Yeah, which, once again, even them surviving a hit from him is just more insane.
And Sarada's just blatantly faster than him. Like, when Sarada's got her Sharingan on, in the anime's Tutomo Manga 3, doesn't matter, she's just saying Boro's not that fast compared to her. Like, she can get out of the way of all of his hits, and Boro only ever hits Sarada whenever Sarada's acting weak in order for the plan to go through. And then obviously she pulls out Chidori and he just gets destroyed.
So what are some pro Naruto Part 1 arguments? Are there any pro Naruto arguments at this point? Because I feel like after the time skip or the time travel arc, there just isn't any.
There's just no way. Arc, it's just like Boruto spanking, really.
Yeah, and not to disrespect Naruto, Part 1. I like Naruto Part 1 more than Boruto, for what it's worth. And back in the day, we did say Naruto wins based on the information we had, but due to these updates, there's just absolutely no way he can take on a Otsutsuki programmed Boruto, and maybe at best he might be able to fight base Boruto. However, base Boruto, even taking in a hit from amped Boro, is just beyond anything Part 1. Hey, if you can point out anything Part 1 Naruto has ever done that's that level, go ahead, and the only thing you're going to be able to point out is literally Boruto, like, filler, where he's back in time with Boruto, and Boruto and him are both fighting Borushiki. And for some reason, Naruto with one tail is stronger than Jiraiya and base Sasuke, despite the fact that Jiraiya could take hits from four-tailed Naruto, let alone one-tailed Naruto. And like Six said, this Naruto, even in the past, may have been amped by Boruto saying, dad or whatever, which let him create this Rasengan over his head without any hands, which he's never done anywhere else in Part 1. Even when he was fighting Sasuke, he still used one hand to create his Vermilion Rasengan. Wasn't nearly as big or powerful, but Boruto reaching out to him does. So he might have been amped as well.
Jiraiya's Rasengan, bruises Urushiki's, cloak. But then the combination of these two erases him. It's just clear. It's just such weird scaling to take the arc as, complete canon to the original material.
Right. It creates kind of a loop, and, everyone in the community has talked about, man, this arc cannot be canon. It's so weird. It just has so many connotations. Either they went to a different timeline, or it just can't be canon. It's so weird. But even then, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because we've seen Orochimaru, while weaker than he was in Part 1, fight four-tailed Naruto. And Orochimaru in Part 1, while stronger, is apparently relative to Jiraiya, base Jiraiya, who can also fight four-tailed Naruto and survive. So one-tailed Naruto being godly stronger than Uroshiki and Jiraiya just doesn't really make a lot of sense, unless Uroshiki is just suppressed and Jiraiya is as well, or Urushiki's poisoned and weakened. But anyways, you guys get the idea. I don't want to rant about why Boruto beats Naruto. It kind of gives me a sick taste in my stomach. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe if you did. Also, be sure to check out Six's channel. Thank you very much for coming on, and I hope you guys learned something. And other than that, till next time.